Chapter 57, The Inner Labyrinth. They moved in silence. Not because the place demanded it, though it did, but because both of them seemed to need that wordless space to sort through what they had been carrying for days. The corridor was narrow, uneven, and the floor required every step to be measured. Yet Alden walked with a new kind of assurance, almost automatic, as though his body had learned to decide before it learned to doubt. At first, Leanna watched him from behind, then from at his side. "You move differently," she said at last in a low voice. Alden did not stop. "Differently how?" Leanna took a moment before answering, searching for the right word. "Like someone who is no longer waiting for instructions." He let out a brief breath. It did not become a full laugh. "I suppose there comes a point when there are none." They went a few steps farther. The crystal light reflected unevenly against the walls, erasing shadow and reference alike. Even so, Alden moved without hesitation, choosing turns and pace with an instinct he had not possessed when all this began. "When I first met you," Leanna continued, "you were an insecure boy." She said it without harshness, almost with a restrained smile. "A little spoiled too, always convinced the world owed you explanations." Alden turned his head slightly toward her. "Thank you for the honesty." "I am not finished," she replied, lifting a brow. "Now," she studied him carefully, "now I would not recognize you if I did not know who you were. You have taken Kaylor's place without realizing it." The name fell between them with a weight of its own. Alden stopped for a moment, not because of the ground, but because of what it meant. He braced one hand against the wall, breathed, and then moved on. "I do not think I have taken his place," he said. "I am only trying not to let him be lost entirely." Leanna looked at him from the side. "That is exactly what he used to do." Alden did not answer at once. The corridor widened slightly, enough to let them walk with a little more ease. The distant sound of the abyss was still there, but muted, as though even the stone were listening. "I am still that boy," he admitted at last. "The insecure one, the one who doubts." He lowered his gaze for a second. "It is only that now. I cannot afford to let it show." Leanna slowed until she was level with him. "That is not disappearing," she said. "It is learning when to show it." Alden looked at her then, truly. "You have changed too." Leanna let out a brief, incredulous laugh. "Oh, have I?" "When I met you," he continued in a tone that brushed against teasing, "I thought you were arrogant, sharp-edged, like the whole world annoyed you simply by existing." "That is slander," she replied, though there was a clear smile on her face. "Now I see that you are—" Alden made a vague gesture. "Actually rather kind, when you choose to be." Leanna shook her head, amused. "Do not tell anyone." They walked a few steps more, and something in the air loosened. Not the danger, not the tension of the place, but that inward rigidity both of them had been carrying since the group was split apart. Alden spoke again, more slowly. "I wanted to thank you." Leanna looked at him. "For what?" "For staying." He did not raise his voice. "For teaching me, for supporting me even when I was not sure I deserved it." He swallowed. "Without you, I would not have been able to act the way I have, or lead, or keep the group together." This time Leanna stopped. So did Alden. She looked at him with a mixture of surprise and something deeper. Pride, perhaps, or recognition. "I did not hold you up so you could become someone else," she said. "I only showed you what was already there." Alden lowered his eyes. "Even so, it meant a great deal to me." The silence returned, but it was not uncomfortable. Leanna drew a deep breath and stepped a little closer. "Kaylor would be proud," she said. "And not because you are imitating him," she met his eyes, "but because you are being yourself." Alden felt something tighten in his chest. He nodded slowly. "I will do everything in my power to end Galathor, as he would have wished." Leanna held his gaze a second longer than necessary. She said nothing. She did not need to. Then something stopped Alden. What stopped him came not as a sound, nor as a real movement, but as a brief image crossing his mind. Luthera moving several steps ahead, body low, certain, turning her head only slightly as if confirming the direction. The sensation was brief, but clear. He closed his eyes for a moment, then pointed to the corridor on the right. "That way," he said with quiet conviction. Leanna looked at him, surprised. "Are you sure?" Alden nodded. "Yes." He offered no further explanation. He did not need to. "We are not moving blind." They resumed walking, side by side, not touching, but closer than before. And though the abyss remained a hostile place, Alden knew that silent presence, far away yet attentive, was still guiding him. The creature moved several steps ahead of them, with that unsettling mixture of caution and certainty they had already learned to respect. It did not walk in a straight line. It would stop, tilt its head, listen. Then it would resume without looking back, certain they would follow. Doran walked a few paces behind, his axe resting on his shoulder, but without the usual weight of confidence. His steps were firm, though his gaze remained fixed on the ground, as if he were still searching for the exact point where he had made the mistake. Dren noticed at once. "If you keep looking like that," he murmured, "you are going to trip again." Doran gave a low grunt through his teeth but did not lift his eyes. "Perhaps I should," he replied. "At least then it would be consistent." The creature stopped for a moment and raised one small hand. Both of them froze. After a few tense seconds, it moved on again. The danger was not immediate, but silence still ruled everything. They walked a little farther before Dren spoke again. "It was not your fault." Doran let out a brief, bitter laugh. "Of course it was." At last he looked at him. "Everyone was paying attention. Everyone was copying the steps. I wanted to do it my way. And look." Dren gave the faintest shrug as he walked. "That happens to all of us." He made a vague gesture. "Believing we understand the ground before we do." "I have spent half my life in tunnels," Doran replied. "Mines, fortresses, carved cities. I should have known better." "This place is not a mine," Dren said, "nor dwarven work." He glanced toward the creature. "And it is not fair to compare yourself to something that was not made for you." Doran tightened his jaw. "Even so, I split the group." Dren stopped for an instant and forced Doran to stop as well with a quick gesture. "Look at me," he said quietly. Doran obeyed. "We are still alive," Dren continued. "Kyle is alive. Alden too. And she," he inclined his head toward the creature, "seems to know very well how to find them." The creature turned its head slightly as though it had sensed they were speaking of it, then continued onward. Doran drew a deep breath. "I suppose you are right." They went on a little farther in silence. The sound of their steps was almost non-existent, swallowed by the stone. "You are not as they told me," Doran said suddenly. Dren raised a brow. "That sounds promising. And what did they tell you? That I am dangerous, treacherous?" He flicked a hand. "The kind of man who smiles while he puts a knife in you." "Not exactly," Doran admitted, "but it went in that direction." "They are not entirely wrong," Dren replied without defensiveness. "There are things in my past I do not take pride in." He looked ahead. "Things I cannot change." Doran nodded slowly. "We all carry something." He tightened his grip on the axe haft. "But sometimes you meet people who make you think the future is not entirely lost." Dren said nothing. "That happened to me with Alden," Doran continued, "and with Kalor." He smiled faintly. "You did not know him, but I think you would have liked him." "I doubt it," Dren replied. "Heroes do not usually like me." "Kalor was not a hero," Doran said. "He was a man trying to do what he believed was right, though perhaps that does make him a hero." Dren kept silent for a few seconds. "I have never been one for staying long in groups," he said at last. "When we get out of this hole, I will probably head for some human city, escort caravans again, leave the heroic things to others." Doran looked at him from the side. "That is fine," he shrugged. "I was not inviting you to stay with us anyway." For the first time, Dren smiled without irony. "That reassures me." The creature stopped again and pointed toward a lower corridor. Both men crouched without complaint. Before moving on, Doran spoke once more. "Only," he said, "I am glad you are here now." Dren nodded. "So am I." They followed the creature deeper into the labyrinth, not knowing how much farther it would be before they rejoined the others. But for the first time since the separation, the weight of the mistake was shared, and for that reason, easier to bear. Luthera moved ahead of them without hesitation. She did not need to look back. Her body moved with the certainty of something following a trail that did not depend on scent or sound, but on something deeper. Her steps were firm but silent, her back low, her tail barely moving. Each time she stopped, it was only for the space of a heartbeat, as though confirming a direction she already knew before continuing. Sarah walked to her right, bow in hand, her attention divided between the walls and the wolf. Cale followed a few steps behind, shield hanging from his left arm, sword low but ready. "She will lead us to Alden," Sarah said quietly, without taking her eyes from the corridor. It was not a guess. It sounded like certainty. Kyle glanced at her. "You place a great deal of trust in her and in Alden." Sarah answered without looking at him. "It is not trust, it is knowledge." She made a small gesture toward Luthera. "That bond is strong. The labyrinth does not break it merely by standing between them." Kyle frowned. "That sounds rather like saying you trust them." Sarah stopped for an instant. Luthera did as well, as though she had sensed the change in pace. "No," Sarah said at last. "I am here to fulfill a promise. Nothing more." Cal lifted a brow. "To watch over him." "Exactly." They moved on again. "It does not look that way," Cal continued after a few steps. "You train him. You cover his back. You speak to him like someone you—" He searched for the word. "Believe in." Sarah let out a short, controlled breath. "We train together because he keeps me sharp, and I cover him because it is the logical thing to do in a fight." She turned her head just slightly. "And if anyone covers Alden's back, it is you." Kyle smiled with a mixture of pride and weariness. "I do not know how to do anything else." Sarah did not answer at once. "Alden and I grew up like cousins," Kyle continued, "but I always felt him like a younger brother." He lowered his voice a little. "I always protected him. I always thought that was my duty." Luthera stopped again and scented the air, uneasy. Sarah tensed, but the wolf showed no alarm, only direction. "And now," Kyle went on, "it is different. He is stronger, more decided. Every time he needs me less." Sarah looked at him then. "That is not true." Cale blinked. "He still needs help," she said. "A great deal." Her tone was firm but not harsh. "And you are the only family he has left. That does not change because he grows or makes hard decisions." Cale lowered his gaze for an instant. "Thank you." Sarah looked away at once, as if she did not wish the moment to linger. "I am not saying it to comfort you," she added. "I am saying it because it is true." They kept walking. The corridor narrowed, then opened into an uneven bend. Luthera advanced with care, placing one paw then the next until she found solid ground. Cale imitated her, focused. Then it happened. There was no full vision, only a flash. Lumara's tower. The statue of the mage rose before him, imposing, its stone eyes fixed on him, and a voice deep, clear, impossible to ignore, echoed through his mind. "You are the chosen one." Kyle stopped dead. The world returned at once. He spun, searching for the source of the voice, the echo, any physical trace. There was nothing, only stone, corridors, silence. "Kyle," Sarah asked immediately. Kyle swallowed. "Nothing," he said too quickly. "I just stumbled." Sarah studied him for another second, with the kind of attention not easily deceived. "If you say you are well," she replied at last, "we keep moving." Cal nodded, though his pulse beat hard in his chest. Luthera resumed the march. Cal followed, the shield a little firmer on his arm, his mind in turmoil. The image of the statue would not leave him, nor would the voice, the chosen one. He did not speak the words aloud. He did not dare. But as they followed Luthera through the labyrinth, Kyle knew that would not be the last time that word came back to find him. The reunion did not come at once. Alden felt Luthera's presence before he saw her, not as a sound or a distinct movement, but as a sudden certainty, an inward adjustment that told him they were no longer walking blind. He stopped at once, lifting a hand so Leanna would do the same. "She is near," he murmured. Leanna did not ask how he knew. An instant later, the wolf emerged from a side turn. She advanced with a steady step, without any trace of doubt or agitation, and upon seeing him, she stopped before him. Alden crouched without thinking and laid a hand against her neck. "Well done," he whispered. Luthera gave no answer, but her tail moved once, slowly, like an affirmation. From that same corridor, Sarah and Cale appeared. Both stopped when they saw them, as though they needed to confirm that it was not another illusion of the labyrinth. Cal was the first to react, releasing the breath he had held for too long. "I knew we would find each other," he said, more to convince himself than out of certainty. Sarah gave the slightest nod, but her posture relaxed just enough to betray relief. There were no embraces, no celebration. Only that brief, silent pause in which each of them confirmed that the others were still whole. Two were still missing. They heard them before they saw them. Hurried steps, a rough exhale, a low voice muttering a curse under its breath. Doran appeared first, the axe resting on his shoulder, with Dren close behind. Between them, the creature advanced cautiously, its great eyes attentive to every movement, as if it feared that even the reunion itself might disturb the balance of the place. Alden rose. "They are all here," he said, and this time it sounded like an affirmation with weight behind it. Doran stopped in front of him. "Next time," he growled, "I will cut off my foot before I step where I should not." Dren let out a brief breath that might have been a laugh. "I will make note of it," he replied. The creature watched the scene with close attention. It did not seem to understand entirely what had happened, but it sensed the change. The group was one again. Something had closed. Then, without words, it made a gesture with one hand. "Follow." They moved together through one last stretch of the labyrinth. The corridor widened little by little, the rock losing that constant sense of pressure. The air changed. It grew wetter, more open. The labyrinth ended without announcement. Before them opened a great natural passage, wide, held up by arches of stone that seemed shaped by water over centuries. Two rivers ran on either side of the central path, emerging from openings in the side walls and vanishing again farther ahead into darkness. The sound of the water was constant, deep, and for the first time since they had entered the abyss, it did not feel hostile. It was a road, not safe, but clear. Alden took one step forward and stopped. The creature did not follow. It had remained behind, near the invisible threshold that marked the labyrinth's end. Its ears were flattened backward, its body rigid. It made a short gesture, shaking its head. It would go no farther. Lyanna turned to it at once. "You do not have to," she said softly. The creature looked at them one by one, not with sadness, but with a kind of fearful relief, as though that place, dangerous as it was still home to it. It pointed toward the labyrinth behind it, then toward the passage before them. Two different worlds. Alden approached slowly and crouched to its height. "Thank you," he said. He did not know whether it understood the word, but it understood the gesture. Lyanna crouched as well and laid an open hand over her chest, then extended it toward the creature, repeating the gesture she had used before. "Thank you." The creature hesitated for a moment. Then it did something unexpected. It stepped forward and touched Lyanna's hand with its fingers, just the briefest brush. Then it withdrew at once, as though it had crossed a boundary it was not meant to cross. Luthera approached and scented it calmly. The creature did not flee. It only inclined its head once. Then it turned and vanished into the shadows of the labyrinth without looking back. The group stood in silence for a few seconds more. "It will never leave," Cale murmured. "No," Alden replied, "but it opened the door for us." He turned toward the passage. "Come." They went forward between the two rivers, leaving behind the labyrinth, the traps, the separations, and the distant echo of Murkaz. The sound of the water followed them, steady and unbroken, like a reminder that even in the abyss there were roads that led onward. They did not know how far remained, nor what they would find next, but they were together, and for now that was enough.